Hello and thanks for joining us. It's been 3 weekends of dealing with winter weather, and as the snow starts to taper off, we're shifting our focus to strong winds, freezing temperatures, and that could lead to slick road conditions. The Georgia Department of Transportation says snow and ice are creating slick spots on some roads. Crews are plowing interstates and state routes across north and northeast Georgia. GDOT says strong winds are reducing visibility and making road conditions across parts of the state more dangerous. Right now, officials are urging you to stay off the roads as bridges and overpasses can ice over quickly. Here in central Georgia, we've been in contact with local officials who are keeping an eye on the roads. We have a look in Washington County. Sheriff Joel Cochran says they are now getting more snow and reports of icing. This is a live look. So far, those reports range between Sandersville and Baldwin County on the Fall Line Freeway. We see just very light traffic there. There have also been some roads that are getting icy on Highway 22, Highway 15 North, Highway 24 East, Tinnell-Oconee Road, and Georgia Highway 242. So if you do have to drive, a couple of tips. Slow down and leave extra space between you and the cars around you, and use headlights in low visibility. You're going to want to keep an emergency kit in your car just in case you get stuck. Lastly, don't take any sharp turns and don't brake too hard. Now looking at power outages, almost 200 people are without power in Washington County, specifically along Georgia Highway 231 between Riddleville and Harrison. We're also seeing a few outages in Macon County. However, the majority of the power outages in Georgia right now are in the Atlanta area. No word on when power will be restored there. Families who've lost power are urged to go to warming shelters to help stay warm during this last January freeze. Fingers crossed, this is the last one. Meteorologist Ben Jones, you've been very busy for the last 3 Saturdays and actually the last 3 weeks. You were brave enough to walk outside and check the conditions. What were they like?
It kind of took me off guard. I got out there in the backyard garden. The wind was howling so bad and the trees were bending. I'm like, I'm going back inside. I mean, plus it was brutal being out there. And I will tell you, yes, Lori, no matter what happens, it is the last January freeze because I think today's the 31st. Isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's right. We have no choice. This is the last one, folks. We would try to offer more winter storms in January if we could, but we can't stretch the month out. All right. Why are we looking at this, you may say? Well, that's not all snow there. That's the way the lights shine on top of the parking garage. But I did want you to see in these little corners here, that was some of the snow that came down earlier here in the downtown Macon area. It's not that it all melted off, whatever. The wind just shoved it into the corners because these parking garages are very cold. And so there was no real melt. And actually, if I were to get out of the way, this cart, there's a bunch of it back over here as well. So it's just a fine, dry powder out there, and it's not going anywhere. So the wind's able to just be tossing this stuff around. And when I was out in the garden, that's what it was doing coming out of the trees, just like a fine powder, not like the kind of wet snow sometimes that we can get around here. And as it's been coming down today, there's definitely been no melting, like normally you see it kind of hit the windshield of a car and then it kind of slides down or whatever over the course of an hour or so. Not this, 23, and that's the reason why. It's so cold. It feels like 7 degrees right now because of the wind. The wind just continues to howl out there. I'm going to say as low as maybe 15 for the start in the morning. The wind chill, though, will probably be somewhere like 2-3 degrees, something like that, to start the day tomorrow. Sunshine does come back tomorrow, and there is a window of opportunity to melt some things off in, obviously where the snow has been, which is mainly in our eastern counties. It's a window from like noon to 7. So those 7 hours to try to melt some stuff off. And what does not melt will then refreeze again tomorrow night because we're going into the upper teens to start the day Monday morning. All right, so let's get into this big map. And you can see just cold stuff everywhere for a month again. I've said this so many times. It started out in the upper 70s to near 80 degrees. We have definitely made up for it in the other 3/4 of the month. As far as the numbers are concerned statewide, 23 in Macon, 21 Atlanta, 20 in Athens, up in those cold snow zones where they saw more up in northeast Georgia. The numbers are really not that far away from what we're seeing, and especially in some of our northern counties. 21, 22, looks like we're anywhere from 21 to 26 in Warner Robins. That is the spread right now, which is all well below freezing. And again, this wind map just tells so much of the story. Its title is Winds and Wind Gusts. And so the wind is sort of a sustained number where we're kind of sitting at something like 15 to 20 plus miles per hour, but occasionally we'll get a wind gust that the computer picks up on, and then we'll throw it in yellow. So we've seen anywhere from 35 to near 40. I would have to say the one when I went outside a little bit ago had to be close to 40 miles an hour. There's a look at what it does to the equation. It takes what is the number, which is in the 20s, and drops it down single digits. It feels like 6 in Thomaston, which is just weird to say numbers like that. 7, 8, 9 degrees in spots, and even on the upper end of the scale, 15 degrees for a wind chill in some of our southern counties. So nobody's avoiding the cold wind tonight. There is the radar shot, which is emptying out. They've been using this throughout the day today, showing in the blue shaded area where the snow was more concentrated, all right? It wasn't really picking up on every little flurry out there, but where it was congregated enough that the radar could really get a good signal on it. That's what we were seeing the blue, and we were able to tell about those batches as we were going through the day today. As a matter of fact, if I'm put stop on here now, and I don't know if it's gonna wanna load all this, but this is, okay, it'll at least, and we can at least go back to about 3:15 this afternoon, all right? So notice as we go forward, there's that secondary batch that started coming down through Washington County, heading toward Johnson County. So this was like the last hurrah getting going here. And it was wild because we just had some flurries over here on this end for a little bit. And then there was like a question of like, well, is this going to get its act together and actually turn into kind of a wave? And it did, because really the snow was kind of ending back here, but enough in a blue shaded area here so we could see, kind of a clustering of snow held together from western parts of Monroe County and in West Bibb, or East Bibb, I should say. The western parts got left out of both counties. So eastern Monroe, eastern Bibb, and then as we went forward, you can see that it came right through downtown Macon there in the blue and right over the TV station here. So we have some accumulation out there in our parking lot and on the cars. And then it went forward. I'll move the map here. As we started going into the 5:30 half hour, Twiggs County was getting that batch. And it looked like, all right, well, Dublin's going to get another shot of this because earlier it was kind of mainly to the east, but then maybe more folks in Lawrence County could get in on it. And there was some here, some here. And we kept looking at the sky cam and saw a couple little flurries, and then it sort of split right around the city there. Dudley and Dexter, Cadwell ended up getting the lion's share out of that batch. And then it made its way on farther toward the south. Just a little bit for Wheeler County right there. Now that's on that mode where we look at it on that color scale blue. If we go over to this one, it's a little easier for me to see. It looks like clouds, but that's not what that is. We have the satellite turned off. If I turn that on, there'd just be white everywhere because of the clouds and the snow. It's hard to pick it apart. But you can see the actual low spinning away. As we zoom in, this was kind of, in this version, picking up on even all the little flurries. So even the little darker gray spots would be even just little flurries, and there may be one or two still left in a couple of spots like Wilkinson County right there, but definitely not a big deal. Just be one you'd see in a street light every once in a while. Seeing that big picture though, you can see that low churning into the Carolinas there, still putting down snow for South Carolina and definitely for North Carolina now, because what's happening is all that moisture coming in from the Atlantic, you can see, watch it when it turns over to freezing and goes into snow. It just continues to just flood on into the Carolinas here, going up the mid-Atlantic coast. So, as far as anything back up north of us that would be coming down, I don't see anything other than flurries up that way. So, let's take a look at the graph model. We're not going to see much with any of this because it's gone. Just shows that, yeah, it continues to leave on off toward the east. As we look at the, let's see, let's do the high-res model. Let's see if we can get this to go. And again, it shows, just to prove to you that there's no more snow to go through tonight. Moving away, and I'm not even going to show the other models because there's no point in doing that. But let's talk about this. We had heard from some of our eastern, northeastern counties, from sheriff's offices and EMA offices about roads looking like this. And we showed you at the top of this hit here. In Washington County. I mean, other spots around there, Hancock and all these kind of have roadways that look like this. And again, when it came down, the road temperature was warmer than freezing in a lot of spots. Now it started to pile up because there's so much snow so fast that it really just started to sit there on the roadway, and probably even kind of helped chill the road down enough that it could support some snow on there. That's the reason why a lot of them still look like this in those areas where it has been snowing for off and on for a long time today. But as you go farther on off toward the west, toward the Macon area, where we got some of the snow showers, and then they sat on some surfaces, but as far as the flurries that landed on the road, they would melt, and then all of a sudden you had a wet roadway. Well, then, we've been in the 20s, and so there's been a concern about freezing or slick spots on there. And where there's not a whole lot of travel in some of these spots, that could be the case, that we have maybe some patchy black ice, and we talk about that from time to time. And just a little breakdown on that, just to show you, obviously, or maybe not obviously, it isn't really black. It's because of the asphalt and the road, the way it looks at night, and I'm in the way of all this, but it's practically transparent, making it, under the laptop, hard to spot. So it can just be a very micro thin layer of ice that you don't even know is there until you go over it. Also, talking about the difference, you see these signs all the time, bridge ices before road. It's always funny to see that sign on a 100-degree day in July, but they just leave them up there year round. So what happens is the road is unearthed, so it's insulated. It has the heat there kind of like underneath it. I'm talking about, so it's not losing heat as fast as something like a bridge or a parking garage, like we said, because cold air is above it and underneath it and everything. So this just becomes a big floating cold rock hanging in the sky. So that's the reason why those areas usually freeze before. Interesting though, this afternoon, it was such a cold and dry powder snow on some of the bridges, at least that I saw. It just kind of blew off to the side. It never turned into ice. There was never a reason for it to melt, to turn into ice, but it was actually the roads that were the problem, and still could be the problem tonight, where we did see some melt of the snow there, and making it just a liquid form that could, maybe freeze as we go through tonight. Talking about messy roads, 70% of snow and ice-related injuries occur in automobiles, and leaving enough space between you and the person in front of you. We talk about all that stuff, but it's very important. And we've already been getting calls in different counties tonight, ongoing, that are having people riding off into ditches as we speak right now. So live and in the moment is when these kind of things are happening, because of the numbers that we have. So cold out there. All right, so this shows a low of around 20 in the morning. Again, if you look at a blend of a lot of the models, we decided to drop down and went 15 for the overnight into tomorrow morning. Now tomorrow we do get into the upper 30s. I want to back this up because this is key. Notice as we get into around noon on the timeline up there, that's when we should go above freezing. So maybe starting around 12, and that'll give us, with sunshine, that'll give us a little time to see if anything melts. We hit upper 30s as we head into the afternoon, and then by the time we get into about 7 o'clock, we're starting to go back down again below freezing. So about a 7-hour window should do a pretty good number on melting a lot of stuff off. I mean, it's not 80 degrees, but it's technically above freezing. Anything low-lying areas, places like that in the shade, may hang around, and that will refreeze tomorrow night. This shows upper 20s. Tomorrow night into Monday morning, going with kind of the consensus blend of a lot of models, we're going to say upper teens to around 20, and then we'll start to warm up even more as we go into Monday. Now, the wind continues to be an issue even as we speak and as we go through tonight. Here's 1 in the morning, still looking at the potential for maybe 30-mile-per-hour winds, at 25 to 30 as we get into the morning tomorrow. Through the day, we're going to see if we can settle around 20 to 25-mile-per-hour winds. But even that's still a bit breezy. So what that does to the numbers, obviously, as we head on through tonight into tomorrow morning, this shows 5 and 6. I think we could see 3 or 4 as a wind chill tomorrow morning. Now tomorrow, I just showed you we get above freezing, but it'll probably feel like at least 30, maybe even some upper 20s as we go through the day. And then this shows low 20s, but we're going to be, the actual temperature should be in the upper teens. All right, so here is the 7-day, and Sharada, if you can. I know I've been prattling on for a while. Maybe we fade me out here. There we go. And just to show you that the weather impact alert finishes up after tomorrow morning. We'll say around lunchtime once we get above freezing. And we're still in it tonight, obviously, in that red box that was there for Saturday. But we continue the red for tomorrow morning into Sunday, again, toward lunchtime. And then we'll get above freezing. After that, refreezing tomorrow. If there is anything, kind of low-lying, shadowy areas, And we'll see what the groundhog says Monday. Hopefully, an early spring will be some of the words we hear. Of course, we know that that's not really a real thing anyway. It's just a rodent, but we like to play the game, so hopefully that'll be what's up. We'll be talking again coming up, the 11 o'clock news on the way. We continue live on 13 WMAZ+.